Hello, my friends, and welcome to Joltin Joe's Wrestling Radio on the Wre-Wind Podcast Network. I'm Joltin Joe, along with my co-hosts, the new Mouth of the South, Tyler Peters, and the godfather of the Wre-Wind Podcast Network, Terrible Ted. Get ready for some skull-crushing wrestling chatter. Welcome, my friends, to Joltin Joe's Wrestling Radio. We missed an episode last week, but since the engineer is also the boss, I can't say anything.
Oh man,
let's tell you guys who we got out here.
Yeah, I actually said last week on the pod, or yesterday on the pod, like, man, I'm really pissed off at Apple right now for making a crappy recording program in QuickTime for the screen grab, man.
Well, the guy you hear talking there is the godfather of the Wre-Wind Podcast Network, Terrible Ted. We've also got our good pal Tyler, the new Mouth of the South, Peters, and our special guest tonight, the incredible, the unfindable. Well, I don't know if that's right. He's back there somewhere. But he looks awesome, doesn't he? He looks terrifying. It's our man, Vinicious. How are you, my friend? He froze up.
130 pounds of power and pain, brother. I love it. Thank you for welcoming me. Yeah, thanks for welcoming me to your show.
Now we got to start here. First of all, we got to talk directly to you're looking way dapper, scary. When you first signed on, man, what was that old movie? In fact, it didn't even have. I think it was just music.
Metropolis.
Yes,
I was the Metropolis guy.
Dude, I was like, oh my God, what's happening here?
Yes. Yeah. I was wrestling as the assassin, and people would just start chanting Metropolis. So I've heard it before, brother. That's it. You know what? I'm switching. I'm Metropolis now. You know.
There you go. Vinicious is here, and so we got a 4-man team tonight. Well, we want to talk a little to Vinicious first because, he's sitting back. First of all, look at how dressed up he is. He looks awesome. All right, that's number one. Number two, he's not working, man. Oh, he's always working, but he's not working. And so we thought Tyler thought it would be a great idea to get us talking to you and find out what's going on with everything about you and your world and CCW. So we definitely want to tell everybody about CCW. And then I'm going to shut up because Tyler, he's got a ton of questions.
Sure.
Ed, I don't know. We're lucky he's awake tonight.
I'm sure you'll bring in some great content for us.
So so tell us what's happening with you,
man. I'm Vinicious, and I'm a wrestler, professional wrestler for Coastal Championship Wrestling. I'm also a promoter there in CCW and the CCW training facility. And man, our students have been sitting at home for a month now, and we're not running shows, and it's crazy. This morning I was there. I took some bumps. I still, my body still feels good, but we're scared. No wrestling, man.
I know. So really, man, when you got out there today, and you started bumping around, doing all that, what's the risks of having a layoff and then getting out there and start pounding it right away?
Man, wonderful question, Joe. So, if your body doesn't take a bump, if you're not in the ring, if you're not taking a hip toss, and if you're not working for let's say 14 days or so, your body needs to restart the entire process, you know, when you first take that bump. So I always say 4 to 5 days, I'm in my early 30s, so I'm not an old guy, but
Like
4 or
me.
5 days. No, man, you're looking good. You're looking good. But 4 or 5 days of some rest is always good. But once you get to that 14th day, man, it's like your body has to remember again, like what it feels to take a bump, what it feels to, come off a turnbuckle or forward flip off the top rope, whatever you want to do. So that's that threshold. 4 days is perfect for me. If I get 4 days off and I don't wrestle, I feel great. If I take 14, that's the problem. But, luckily for me, I own the school. I can go there in the morning and I can do that type of things. What I'm worried about is, in a couple weeks here in Florida, because we're Cowboys down here, we're going to open up and we're going to get things going. Hopefully everyone's just going to be at square one, 6 weeks without taking a bump.
Yeah, I could see that. Well,
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here. I know Ted was gonna jump in. I cut him off there, but we'll let him talk in a second. But
you're fired.
I just wanted to tell you that our secret weapon, the new mouth of the South there, Tyler, probably has about 50 or 75 questions for you, man. So
okay,
I
good.
I thought I'd get my little portion in the front and then just let
beautiful.
go here, man. Ted, I cut you off, so man, do you want to jump in here and we'll give Tyler some room?
Yeah. So I mean, I work with an indie up here in Pennsylvania, and with ACPW, American Championship Pro Wrestling, and we have a school as well, and I'll tell you what, man, like the guys from the school that are kind of working their way around Facebook and like they're all in chats and stuff like that, they're getting that itch at this point where they're like they haven't been able to just get in the ring and bump for weeks now, and it's starting to get on them. And I told them to go and watch the Big Show's Broken Skull session, because in that he actually talks about what it was like to take a bump, a big bump for the first time in like 2 years. And he didn't get really a chance to get in the ring and to do stuff beforehand, and how crazy it is, for someone that's been doing it long enough, it's your body kind of kicks back in and kind of knows what to do at some point. But for kids that are coming to the school, I worry about the guys coming to our school at ACPW as well, man. So I feel that pain.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was just talking about this with Pablo Marquez, who's my business partner, and he's the head trainer at CCW. And I was talking to him about this morning. Is I had a bunch of injuries that were just there. They're just nagging injuries. My hip, my knee, my ankle, all these things that are just there that I've been wrestling through, for God knows how long. So when you do get a little bit of this time, I was like, man, my hip feels good. My knee feels good.
Yep.
My shoulders feel good. So there's that aspect of it too. I'm not a young guy anymore. I'm not I'm not 22 anymore. I'm not 23 anymore. So, it's definitely, I'm excited for that aspect, that I actually got some time to heal. Actually, I broke three ribs in Colombia like 2 months ago. But this morning, I took a back bump, and I was like, my ribs actually are healed. Like they weren't fully healed, and now they're finally healed. So,
wow.
Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy, man. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, and that the aches and pains are kind of melting away a little bit, man.
Yeah.
Tyler, what you got, man?
What do you got, Tyler? Lay it on me, dude.
Yeah, man. Vinicious, I tell you, Ted and Joe brought up great points as always. How important is the YouTube channel? I know you guys are getting back to wrestling, which is great, but how big and important is that, having that content for Coastal Championship Wrestling? I mean, you guys have a great production. You've had some big names come through there. Can you tell us more about that, your content that you got out?
Yeah, it's a great question that you asked about the YouTube channel, because during the beginning of this pandemic, we never had a YouTube channel, and wrestling for 16 years, running CCW for 16 years as a company. We had Antonio Banks was MVP, is a world champion, one of our world champions, Dustin Rhodes, the Tokyo Monster, Cahagas, who's an NWA Triple Crown champion, and they have tons of matches. D'Lo Brown, the Dudley Boys came in during their TNA run for 4 or 5 matches a year, and we had a huge DVD library that was sitting there. you know, people in South Florida knew who we were, you know, but we needed to get those matches out there to the masses. So, you know, we put out a cage match with the inaugural CCW championship match with MVP versus the Blackheart. I have when MVP won the title next Thursday that's going to premiere. And then I have queued up a ton of matches from CCW because by giving those matches away for free, all it's going to do is bring more attention to a promotion that, you know, we run 12 times a year, big shows 12 times a year. So, you know, it'll bring as much as we can, you know, to show the lineage of our titles and that type of stuff. So that YouTube is huge. YouTube is replacing television. So where in the 1980s or 1990s, Vince McMahon is buying network time across the country. Well, you don't have to do that. You can go and put something up that gets 10,000 views, 100,000 views. One of our you know, bigger stars, he jumped off a 20-foot ladder, and on his YouTube page, I think it got like 600,000 views, 500,000 views. And that was one of the things I was like, man, we're just, you know, we need to bring that attention to CCW. And we are now. So, you know, classic matches, editing newer matches, and especially with the fact that during this COVID-19 pandemic, who knows when wrestling fans are going to come back? Who knows when we're going to be able to put 500-600 people into our gymnasium? You know, we're expecting we're going to have to run, you know, school shows, 120, 130. So what are we going to do? Let's film the shows. Let's make the students excited about wrestling. Let's make our local guys excited about wrestling. So that's kind of where we see the future of wrestling, and that YouTube channel will be a major part of it.
Well, it's kind of cool to know that you have kind of a game plan, that you guys are thinking about what you need to do. And you know, you've been around long enough so that there's history there, but to have that backup plan, that plan B, that plan C, who knew we'd ever be in a situation like this? You know,
it's horrible. You know, it's one of the worst things that I've experienced in my life. You know, and but it's a little bittersweet. I just had my first child, a daughter, 7 weeks ago.
Congrats!
Congratulations, my man.
Thank you. I never would have been able to see her. I would have been working. I'd have been on the road. I'd have been at the school. And so, you know, in a horrible way, like obviously, you know, this is a horrible thing, but, you know, I was able to spend just a month of, you know, with her as much as possible. So it's bittersweet, you know.
It's amazing time too, when they're that young. It's like, wow.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Tyler, man. Why don't you jump in there? Because you know, we never let him ask enough of his 3,000 questions.
Well,
lay it on me, Tyler.
Yeah, I was lucky to have 3,000, maybe 3. But no, I'm teasing, man. These guys are so nice. What I was going to ask you is, Vinicious, can you tell us about your background? I mean, your start into the business, into wrestling. Can you give us some details about that?
Yeah, sure. You know, I was born in Brazil, but I came to the U.S. at a very young age, and I started training in Chicago with a company that doesn't exist anymore, PCW. You know, Joey Scarpone and those guys. Briefly, I came down to South Florida. I'm in the construction business, and that's when I met with Dan and Pablo, and then it just kind of clicked. I knew as a kid that I wanted to be a promoter. You know, obviously as a wrestler, you know, you can do some battle royals here and there, but you really need to commit, you know, full time to go out there and to be who you are. So, you know, I decided I was going to be a promoter from a young age, but I always wanted to be a professional wrestler. And then 6 months ago, I was working under some different masks and, you know, not getting myself to what I should have been committing to. And then about 2 years ago, I really committed. And about 7 months ago, I was in an airport. I was booked in Bogota, Colombia. And I got to meet the WWE announcer, Spanish announcer, Hugo Savinovich. And he was big in Puerto Rico, and he's an amazing guy. And he saw me, and he's like, "Look, you're 6 foot, 1.5, and you're 350 pounds at the time." He's like, "Why do you just go and lose? So you shouldn't be losing." He's like, "You're not who you are." And at that moment, he said, "You know who you are?" He's like, "You're Vinicious. You're the Brazilian destroyer, and you're not Puerto Rico 2-on-1 matches, just destroying people left and right." And then similar to where a guy like Earthquake, if you guys remember, or King Kong Bundy. Once I find a babyface who should be able to beat me, then, you get a big rub off of, a guy who's destroying people left and right. But that's basically been the trajectory. And then of course, promoting has been the best part of it all. Obviously I love wrestling. I'll always love wrestling, but the promotion aspect is, the creative aspect of promoting, the commercial aspect of promoting, and then even the operational stuff, has just been such a blast. So that's basically my journey. And then I owe it all to Pablo Marquez, in terms of really training me to be a wrestler. He is a world-class trainer. He's our head trainer. Guys fly in from Chile, from Panama, people come from Mexico before they get a tryout for the WWE, and they stop at CCW because if you guys know, you work on the right side in Mexico. In the U.S., you work on the left side. So when people need to learn how to work a U.S. style in Mexico, they come to Pablo Marquez. And so you have those guys like Hugo Savinovich. You have those guys like, plenty of guys from CMLL have come through our doors, trained with us before their next stop is a WWE tryout or wherever they're going to go. So, man, I didn't realize that I wasn't really trained until Pablo Marquez trained me. So, it's easy. It's an easy sell when you have someone who wants to learn to be a professional wrestler in Florida, because everyone in the world pushes their people towards Pablo. So me as his business partner, it's like a dream, it's amazing.
Wow. That's
I think I answered that question. I don't know. I sometimes I ramble a little bit, but
no, I mean, that was awesome.
No, that was right on, man. That was right on. I have a quick one for you here. So I had a chance to take a look at a clip you posted on Twitter. And by the way, we'll have we'll have your Twitter handle and everything posted in the description for everything, and we'll link the YouTube channel and everything like that. So if people need to find out where they can see Vinicious and stuff like that, you'll be able to find that in the description below. I had an opportunity, and you're choke slamming people and giving people huge slams, and man, you're moving. You're really moving. And you've been in the business for a number of years now. You talked a little bit earlier about the nagging injuries you had. What have you found that's been like the recurring, this is going to bother me for the rest of my life thing? Because I haven't been around a whole bunch of wrestlers, especially this last year or so, where I've kind of gotten into the business at the announce table, and I've been, I've become friends with a lot of guys. Everybody has that one injury that, like, that's always going to be their thing for the rest of their career now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have a pretty big one. I had a patella tendon rupture in my left knee that was a year and 2 months on the shelf. And I know, like, even when I do a forward roll, like this morning I went and I did 50 forward rolls. Because when you tuck your hips and you do that forward roll, every time I land on that left knee, it's like that little bit of a twinge, and it'll never stop. But one of the things that I love, or one of the things that keeps me going, is Vader had that same injury. So I think, look, if Vader can have that injury and then become Vader, then go to Japan and murder those guys and stiff a bunch of people and hurt some people, then of course I could do twice as much, Yeah. So I that's the one, that my knee injury. And I don't like to say that a lot, because if my opponents see that, they'll go right for my knee from now on, and that'd be bad news. But yeah, it's in my left knee, a ruptured patella tendon from 9 years ago, playing football, actually, not wrestling, but
that's my thing too, man. I'm a martial artist. I've been a martial artist my whole life. I'm a 5th degree black belt. And the most serious injury I've ever had was I cracked my ankle. I had a spiral fracture of my fibula from playing rugby in my freshman year of college gym class.
Yeah, it's always how it is, right?
That's
it's
right.
Always
I go out there and I fight people full contact,
right?
And I don't get hurt, but I get hurt playing rugby.
But if you go play basketball, you're like you're gonna crack your ankle or something. It's always like that. It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. I took a backdrop off of a second. Well, I think I broke 3 of my ribs taking a backdrop off a second rope, I think. But in reality, I was working for a company in Colombia, and the ring was just solid. It was ridiculous. It was bumping on concrete. And we have great rings at CCW. And all the guys in Florida all have the same rings, So, man, it was like, bam, like no give. And then I took a backdrop off the second rope, and then I knew like something was horribly wrong. And I didn't want to go to a hospital in Colombia. I was like, I'm going to die of hepatitis if I go to this hospital. So luckily my flight was the next morning, but I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. My back was spasming. It was a terrible injury. but I wrestled through it. Like it was, it's one of those things where it was there, and being a guy my size, thankfully I don't have to bump a lot in my matches. Right. So, I was able to get through it. I think that will possibly be a nagging thing, but it felt good today. But, you have to just make sure you take care of your body as much as possible, and that's, otherwise you have nothing. Right.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned Vader, and I think one of the biggest issues in later career for him is the weight, that he just had way too much weight on. Even a guy that talented, if you're just carrying too much, man, it wasn't a good thing. That's for sure.
No. And remember when he called himself a fat piece of crap, right? On Raw. That was horrible. I remember as a kid, I was like, why are you saying that? I loved Vader. But, I was a shoot 350. So they would say, I'm like 385. And then I'm down a lot. And it's funny because Pablo saw me and he's like, you have to stop losing weight because you're not a monster. You're not going to be a monster. You're going to be a regular looking guy soon. But in reality, it's like, it's been a godsend, I'm trying to get down. I'd like to get down and as I transition, probably in another 20 years out of the ring, I think I can wrestle 20 more years. If Goldberg can win the championship at 53, I can wrestle for CCW or in Puerto Rico when I'm 50 years old. But from that point on, man, I definitely got to trim down because your body can't hold, so much weight, 350 pounds, 320 pounds, 300 pounds for that long. I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, hey, I was going to ask you, Vinicious, going back to your training school, what advice would you give to a lot of the young wrestlers wanting to break into the business? Just that to me is interesting. I just wanted to get your viewpoint perspective on it.
Man, that's a great question, Tyler. I would say this is before you go and sign up to be a pro wrestler, make sure you actually want to be a pro wrestler. Come 4 times a week, come on the weekends, ask for extra time and really push yourself. Come early, set up the ring, stay with the guys afterward. Look at the guys who've been there for years and ask them, where should I go? What should I do? And just being in there training 4 times a week, that's something. There are guys that come once a month and they pay their tuition and they go and they set up the ring and they're not in a main card match or they're not. And it's like, okay, I understand we're busy, but if you really want to be a pro wrestler, it's actually this. When you're born, you're a pro wrestler or you're not a pro wrestler. That's the real truth of the matter. Okay. So if you want to be a pro wrestler, like you have to wait, if you see wrestling, that's it. You want to be a wrestler, you don't. So just to be as committed as possible, get there. And also understand that on the promotion side, there's not a ton of money being made every single show. So come and bust your butt and help and pay your tuition and do your things so that when you're done, your trainer goes and books you at 50 different places and gives you a good recommendation. Because that's how it's done. Because no matter how good you are, you need someone who's in the business, who's a great trainer to be able to call 5 or 6 or 10 different people, whether it's in this country or in Japan or wherever, and get you booked. Mm-hmm. So that's what you have to do. You have to come to Jesus and say, hey, am I a pro wrestler or am I not? That's the real reality of the situation.
That's so right on. My gosh.
And I think that's true of lots, almost any profession, but really something as physically demanding as what you do. It's just like, if you're not in it 100%, get out, and exactly. I've seen some people and I've called, I'm no stranger to pissing people off. So, I call people out, someone will ask me how their match was after a show and, I'm calling commentary for the show. Someone will say, how was my match? And I'm like, well, listen, man, you blew it. Get out. Like, don't come back, please. Like, like, it was really hard to call your match because I had to make it interesting for you, and those are the people that again, they show up once, twice a week to train. They don't, they aren't pulling their weight. They're going to hurt somebody. And it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I had a quick follow-up to that though. We have a very small school for the for American Championship Pro Wrestling, mostly because it only started about a year ago. And then with, with everything that's going on with COVID, it's been a little bit crazy. How many guys and gals do you see come through there at CCW? And, tell us what a basic training regimen looks like, and give us kind of an overview. I know we have to take a break in just a couple of minutes here, but give us an overview. Let's get people some ideas about what it might look like if they walk in the door.
Sure. It's a great question. So we have 26 active students at CCW. And then we have probably about 13 or 14 like kind of former students who are still coming to class and working. Just a lot of people. And it's you come into class, you shake everybody's hand, you get yourself ready, get in, you stretch out. We all stretch out together as a team. And then we start doing our rolls, which in wrestling, that's your grail, man. Like rolls is wrestling. So, forward roll, back roll, 3/4 roll, right, 3/4 roll, left, handstand roll, handstand bump, tiger roll, forward flip bump. Then we'll take 2 bumps, drop kick, and then we'll move around. And then the training starts. Then we sit down and say, okay, so newer guys will be working, whether they're still learning to lock up on the outside, if they're still learning to, the basic stuff on the outside. And then of course, some of the guys will come together and say, okay, we're working on this or X, Y, Z. I'm working on a match. We're working on a tag team match. We're working on bigger moves. Sometimes we'll work on the crash pad, but you have to kind of segment it out because you have 3, and it's really difficult to manage those guys with guys who are, a Will Austin or an Alex Ocean or our champion Agony, who are going 1,000,000 miles a minute. We have guys who work in MLW. We have guys who worked in NXT. So in the prelims in NXT. So it's really hard to work with those guys, but also guys starting on his first day. So really, working on the outside, then eventually you'll get in the ring, you'll hit the ropes. But from day one, you got to roll. You just got to roll. So, Hindu squats, 100 Hindu squats, 100 push-ups, a stretch, and the rolls. And if you're at home and you want to become a pro wrestler, here's what my advice is. If I want to go to wrestling school and you're 16 years old, you're going to wait till you're 18, is do 100 squats every day when you wake up. Maybe not every day, maybe 5 times a week when you wake up. Go and do 100 squats and get your hips, get your quads, get your thighs ready for being a professional wrestler.
Wow.
That's a great overview, man. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, it really is. I was thinking there about sequencing too. At what point do wrestlers begin to put together sequences? Is it 2 months, 3 months, 5 months? I have no idea.
Everyone goes at their own pace.
Okay.
There are guys like Pablo Marquez loves to do this. He doesn't like for me to even break kayfabe. He's a guy who's old school, so he's gonna hate that I'm gonna mess up his little secret here. But one of the newer guys always does this. We're working on a super basic move. He'll take him, he'll shoot him off, and he'll just go back body drop. And he'll come and he'll go for and the guys who are gonna do well already know you put your hands in the back and you're gonna. He doesn't actually back body drop them, but the guys who are going to take it 6 months to 8 months are baffled. You know what I mean? They're baffled. They don't even know. So you have guys who've been watching wrestling their whole life who kind of know, like, okay, how do you take a back body drop? How do you do these type of things? So those guys, man, I've seen guys do really well in like battle royals or in the ring in 8 weeks, 2 months, like pretty well. And then I've seen guys that are a year that are just not getting it. But, those guys, sometimes they'll break out. I'm not an expert in training. But sometimes those guys will break out and do well, and sometimes they won't. So it depends. It's really if you've watched wrestling your whole life, if you really want to be a wrestler, you get some of those things. You know how to punch. You know how to throw an elbow. You know how to sell. You know how to do some of those things. We do it I did it as a backyard wrestler throughout my whole childhood. So you do those things, and some people are, they're going to take longer.
Well, Vinicious, I wanted to ask you, who is maybe a dream opponent? I know it's kind of fantasy booking, but who out of all the promotions would you like to work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was very close to wrestling my my dream opponent. You know, I don't know, but he almost died on the TNA locker room floor a couple months ago. So was in talks about, you know, my dream match was with Scott Steiner.
Yeah.
And then when I saw that, obviously I love Scott Steiner. I love Big Papa Pump. But when I saw that, it hurt me in multiple ways because, you know, that was going to happen. That being said, other than that, man, I would love to wrestle. I'd love to wrestle Brock Lesnar. I'd love to wrestle Brock Lesnar. And a lot of people like give him a lot of heat, but man, he's an amazing specimen. He's legit. And I like to be snug in the ring, and I know he's snug. You know, if it's anyone who's alive or dead, Bam Bam Bigelow, that would be number one. I just rip off Bam Bam Bigelow, and I rip off Vader, and I rip off Earthquake. So I'd just be in the ring with those guys at any point in time would be a dream. And then, of course, losing to Hogan at a WrestleMania would be also a dream. But that would be, you know, if the universe, you know, was perfect. But would be Scott Steiner, and I hope he recovers so that I can, you know, stiff him and choke slam him and destroy him.
What did you think about his brief stint with the NWA? Did you get to see that?
Bro, you know what? Very briefly, I love anything Scott Steiner does. I love him in TNA. I love everything he does. And even like people have showed me stuff that they said is in bad taste that he's done in the past. I just love it anyway. I love everything he does, and that is my dream still. So, you know, even when he cut that promo with that big dude, and he's like, we're gonna sleep with the girls and then give the guys STDs and stuff. That was whatever Scott Steiner decides to do. I'm all for it, you know.
That's perfect, man. That's perfect.
Keeps everybody off balance. That's
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Well, let's say we have a little bit of fun here and go to one of the main things that we've always done. It's kind of our little round table. Hey, what did we see this week? What did we like? What didn't we like? Why is Ted so cranky?
It's called I Have an 8-month-old, brother.
See? There it is. We never have to ask that question again. And I'm going to start, since my name's on the marquee here. I got to ask you guys, did you happen to catch SmackDown last week?
I caught the
Raise your hand if you did.
I caught the majority of it.
Okay. Well, majority, I'm going to the end. And that was Triple H.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm going right there.
Oh man, that segment hurt my soul, man. And I'm listen.
What?
I'm a click mark. You know, like I am just like I am a mark for anything having to do with those five guys. I think that Triple H really and legitimately might be the most prolific person in the business. Yeah, I think he had the perfect balance of being able to do everything. He might be second to Shawn. They're pretty neck and neck. And I can say that in a little bit of certainty because I've been watching all these early 2000 pay-per-views where all they did was fight each other and make each other bleed all the time, you know? But man, that segment was just, it was rough. It was really rough. And that led into, and this is where I do my shameless plug. I'm sorry, Vinicious, you'll get used to it over the next couple minutes here.
No worries.
On the pod that actually came out today. So we're filming this on Thursday, and I published an episode right before we got to filming here. Mike and I talked about the rumors that the WWE could be sold to Fox or ESPN and how that's kind of being fueled even more by the XFL thing where they lost $300 million. And the fact that the story came out a couple of days ago that they're just giving releases to anyone that pretty much asks at this point because they're so in the hole. And you know, with all of that and all of those stories, the common thread is that Vince just doesn't care. And I think that came through a whole lot when he came out and just started firing off and talking about things that he would have never talked about even 2 years ago, let alone 10 years ago or 15 years ago. You know, he would have never no-sold himself on the gobbledygook, you know, and the giant egg. And I think that he just doesn't care anymore. And I'm afraid for what happens to mainstream pro wrestling if something like this happens. I don't think it will. I think that he'll come off his ledge and everything will kind of stay where it is. And that's kind of what I think everybody hopes. But man, that segment scared me.
I enjoy deferring listening to, but then deferring to Bully Ray, on Busted Open. I try to listen as often as I can. And, but he and LaGreca basically said, well, you know what? You wanted something different, you get something different, and you complain. Obviously not to me. That was a little too different for me. And I think we're all used to picturing Vince in a particular way. And who knows, they may all have said, hey guys, let's just have a good time with this. But it seemed out of character for Vince. The other guys, no, it was a frat party,
Right.
Oh yeah.
But
Right.
so that was the confusing thing for me, and I had to disagree with them in that I didn't need it to be that different. Yes, I like change, but I didn't need that.
Well, it's hard to watch wrestling without a crowd to begin with, but like
Yes.
to get so far away from conventional professional wrestling or the sporting event, the feeling of it, I think was what shocked a lot of people. I didn't see the whole segment. I saw some parts, and the parts I saw, my mouth was like, I was shocked. So who knows? I think if the WWE is sold, it could be one of the darkest days in wrestling history, or who knows? It might be a new renaissance in professional wrestling. But I heard those rumors, and it seems like it might be true, which is insane. Dirty Dutch wouldn't do us wrong, right?
Yeah, man, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tyler, anything you want to add? Anything, or you didn't get to see it actually?
Well, no, I got to see it. I'm just
good.
going to say this. Vince, though, you just never know. I mean, you remember, he can play that character well. It may seem out there, but hey, he's almost, Ted, with all due respect, I know you're the Godfather. Well, McMahon is sports entertainment's Godfather. He's pulling the strings. So that's the thing. You just never know. And I'm being serious. I mean, Vince just psychologically may be playing with us, the fans. I mean, he made this. That's just my perspective.
I think there's some validity to that, but I also think that, and this again came up on the podcast, so I'm kind of like reiterating things that Mike said to me about this a little bit, but Vince is always a little bit emotional when it comes to retirements, anniversaries. Like he always breaks out of that McMahon character that we know, that Mr. McMahon character, and he becomes Vince a little bit in those moments. And I think that's fine. I think it shows that they're human beings and they care about each other, and they are a quote unquote family, but in Paul's case, if we're talking about the Shoot family, they are family. He is the father of some of his grandchildren, and he's contributed a lot to keeping the WWE relevant and keeping Vince's pockets lined in the last 15 years,
We don't know if he sees it that way, though.
Well, no.
I think there's for sure that has to be the case, but I've heard he doesn't see it that way. Continue, yeah.
No, I mean, I'm happy to hear what you have to say about that, because I from my perspective, it's just like, maybe it was just like, I'm just completely done. I'm in effort mode anyway, and I'm just gonna go out there and have fun with my son-in-law. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of maybe where we're at. But I mean, what do you think, man?
Well, there's a couple things. We actually have NXT trainers who come to CCW and they work out with Pablo, and they show us kind of the performance center stuff, and so I sometimes get a vibe. And before COVID-19, there was a gentleman who's going to be hired. He's out of Texas. He's going to be hired as a trainer there. And he came down afterward, and he said the vibe just was great. He said, like, it's the NXT, the Performance Center is awesome. The people are awesome. They have main roster guys working with regular, NXT guys. And a lot of that stuff was all positive. But that was before COVID-19. And, it reminds me of a story, from WrestleMania 22 of someone I work very closely with, who was fairly close with Vince McMahon. And what he would kind of explain was when Vince McMahon was away from his normal, the wrestlers and his group of people, all that stuff about he doesn't like sneezing, all that stuff about like that, whatever. He is a completely different human being. Like he seems very like, he explained it to me as such that he would bury his face in his hands for 15 minutes and lay like, sit in a chair, like, upset about something. Right. And pondering, like long things of pondering. But as soon as he would walk into a meeting, or as soon as someone, of importance would come around, he snapped immediately. Shoulders would come up, no matter how tired he was, no matter how upset he was always ready for business. So, but when you're 72, 73 years old, and you've been maintaining that for incredible hours, and they talk about those crazy hours, those are true hours. Like he really does stay like till 2 o'clock in the morning, apparently. So you do that eventually. The reason why it scared me, the whole, Dutch Mantel coming out and saying it's going to be sold or whatever, is because if you're doing that for years and years and years, and you're 73, and then something like this, you think that the XFL is going to work, and you're losing whatever, $30 million. I don't know how much it lost, but that loses that money. And then you see, people trashing your product on television, and you see a new AEW rising, not really a financial threat, obviously, but who knows what's going on with the Fox deal. That scares me, that like a guy who's been going through like, and then like you're saying, something's off. So maybe we've all have our moments where we've just had enough. So maybe that's where he's at. I hope he would look at Triple H, or he would look at guys who I know are doing really amazing stuff at NXT in particular. And he can say, my daughter, my granddaughters, Shane McMahon's children, his grandchildren, like, you have something that you can build an incredible legacy. He's a billionaire already. How many billions of dollars do you need? Like his great grandchildren will not have to work. So why do you need to sell your company? I'm sure Triple H doesn't want to sell. Maybe I'm talking out of my butt, but I'm sure Triple H doesn't want to sell. I'm sure these people want to maintain this amazing thing. Why wouldn't you just say, okay, like why would you need to maximize another $1 billion? That's what I don't understand. But it's scary, and from what I've heard, it's might be legitimate, which is unbelievable.
Only time will tell now. Only time will tell.
And what will Disney do with What would Disney do with WWE?
Exactly.
What would they do? Go there.
Yeah. I almost made that.
Go there, my friends.
Cinderella.
I almost made that the picture. I almost made that the thumbnail for the YouTube release.
Employee. I'm sorry. See that right there? Walt Disney Records, 50 years.
Oh man.
I can't go there. Sorry. I won't. And you'd be bored to tears. So we'll move right on from that.
Okay, go on. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I do want to say, I always like to pull some positives. And for a number of matches now, I think Charlotte Flair has once again proven that she's a master. Some of the best matches. Last night with Mia Yim, I thought it was a wonderful match.
Yeah.
They're doing everything right with her, and she's doing everything right for them. So, she's in NXT. Well, there you go again. One of the best parts of NXT last night.
I agree. I love Charlotte. I love how she seems like she just has a presence that just dwarfs everybody else. I think she's the best women's wrestler in the world. So put her on NXT and see if she can, work against AEW. I thought it was a good idea.
It's, it's been fun.
Yeah, for
sure. You
sure.
guys want to bring something up there? Something that you saw this week that you liked?
So I didn't get to watch everything from last night, but something I made sure to watch was Drake Maverick's match. Obviously all the stuff going on with him. And I'll tell you what, man, I've always been on that guy's bandwagon. Since he was in Impact and he had that match with EC3 where he made EC3 look like the smoothest worker in the world. Rockstar Spud has been my guy. I really enjoyed him. I think that his work is incredible. I think that he can do just about anything he wants to do in this business if he isn't handcuffed, which, you know, is one of the things that we often hear about WWE, is that their people are handcuffed a lot of times. You know, that match that he put on last night was a clinic. It was absolutely spectacular, and I really enjoyed it. And you know, a lot of people said on Twitter, you know, between last night and this morning, well, the Cody and Darby match was better than Drake Maverick's match. Why is everyone talking about Drake Maverick? And I was like, well, was it though? Was it? You know, I like the guys in AEW. I think that they're putting on a great product. I think that their shows are energetic, and that they have that very indie on steroids feel, which I'm all for, because I think that there's something new about professional wrestling with that, and I think that'll get them the audience that they need to be long-term successful, I guess is the way to phrase that. But at the end of the day, man, like, some of the stuff that they've been putting out these last 3 weeks has been below what we expect, I think, of them. And that frightens me, because that same kind of thing, this is like, I feel like AEW is WCW on steroids, because WCW had that great grace period too, but it was a lot longer, and COVID didn't help. You know?
Yeah, no crowds is the worst, man. It's so hard. It's so hard to, I can't even imagine writing a show or you know, with nobody there. I mean, I've done it before, but not on national television. So like, it's scary, you know, but so you kind of have to give them a pass, both companies a pass for the product for the most part. One little insider thing. So Renee Michelle, who's you know, Rockstar Spud's wife, she used to wrestle for CCW. So of course, when I heard they were released, man, I shot some emails out like immediately, like, we need to get you guys down. I wanted no answer at all, zero answer. So I don't know if they're just busy, or they're just ignoring CCW, or it's a work and they're, you know, they're still working there. You know, I'm just saying, you know, I don't know any. All I can tell you is I sent an email and I didn't get a response. So, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a work for sure.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
Gotta be.
It's got. I mean, at this point, like, if it wasn't a work, Leo Rush was announced for the tournament too, right? So if it wasn't a work and they were just letting Rockstar get the payday for a couple, you know, while he was under his 90-day no day, you know, 90-day no compete, then Leo would have had the same opportunity. This is a work.
It's a work, and it's kind of crazy that when you release somebody, he cuts the best promo he's ever cut. That's what you should look at your product and say, okay, like, let Rockstar Spud cut a promo. Let No Way Jose cut a promo. No Way Jose cut a great promo when he was released. I've never seen him cut a great promo. So, you know, it's like, you should think for a second, like, man, these guys are great on the microphone all of a sudden, you know?
Yeah.
Take the handcuffs off.
Oh, man.
Right. So now here's the thing between Ted and I, and I don't need to be an AEW fan, okay? I go into this as what's entertaining me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you, at least I think you do, you dislike the squashes that have been out there over the past couple of weeks. And, you know, we have a monster with us. We have a monster amongst us, and you need squash.
Yes.
So I said that last week, all right? But what, number one, they've got some people in the audience. Yes, they're wrestlers. Two, example of that interaction, Britt Baker pulling her shoe off and clocking Cody. Nice. I like this. They finally found something cool to do with Britt Baker. Finally, you know? So I'm going to say that I like both shows last night. The tournament was not as exciting to me. You know, just didn't mean as much to me. But I would give a slight edge to AEW. Only again because I get pulled in to those characters. And there was MJF, again with his nonsense.
With his hangnail.
But my last thing I want to say, because we're getting low on time and we got to give Tyler a minute here. Come on, Killer Cross.
Please.
Forget about that carrying crap. I'll go along with it, but bring him on. He's going to be a star, man. And I'm not saying he's not already, but this is going to be big for NXT, I think.
I think so too. He'll relate to the NXT audience. I think. Yeah, he'll work.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sure. Tyler. Jump in there, brother. You're quiet.
Come on, Mouth of the South.
No, I'm learning, man. I get knowledge. They say I'm too nice. What I'm going to add is the main events for both shows. I think for me, won it. I mean, I'm going to start with the North American title. These guys are doing cruiserweight stuff. I'm going to get excited here. He is limitless, bask in his glory. I mean, Lee can and Damian Priest can fly. They can do all this innovative stuff. I could watch those guys and put Dijakovic again. I mean, put him back in there with them. I mean, they just keep impressing me, and there's a reason why they put that title on Keith Lee. I get it now. The more I watch him. Not only can the guy do power moves, but he's doing all this high-flying stuff. He's versatile. The facial expressions, to me, sell a lot in wrestling. We talk about the kayfabe, the psychology. I think Dustin Rhodes is the natural. He's doing some of his best work even now. I mean, he was great with Goldust. Lance Archer is a monster. I mean, I didn't get to see his Japanese matches because I know he's reinvented himself there. 2 Texas guys. And to me, it worked because, Dustin's not much shorter than Lance Archer. You forget he's 6'7", so it matched up well. And those guys were flying all over the place. I mean, the backflip, I thought he was going to do Undertaker old school, but thankfully he did out of respect to Taker. He did the backflip moonsault. So my takeaway is just 2 great main events. I thought they both did very well, NXT, AEW, with a lot of matches, but especially to close the show. That's what I'm going to add to that. So I was getting a little excited there. God rest Mean Gene.
Yeah, watch Lance Archer and Will Ospreay in Texas in that G1 match. Like, yeah, I was there. I was row 4, like freaking out. I don't even like wrestling anymore, and I was loving it. So.
Right.
The only other thing that I feel the need to add, and it's because we ended up not being able to get it on the air from last week's show. Really, is the fact that I hate the damn bubbly bunch thing, man. It's been driving me insane, man. Like, listen, you're heels. Be heels. Like, I had a Twitter argument with a guy today. Guy was like, and he's like, he's a guy that's getting back into wrestling. He was a wrestler and then he's getting back into it. I forget what his name was, but he and I were talking. It wasn't like a heated thing, but I was like, listen, people want to be told who to cheer and who to boo a little bit, right? We can all like who we want to like, and that's fine. But we want to know who's supposed to be the bad guy. And when you have these guys that are supposed to be bad guys, up there doing all this, stupid TikTok style stuff, trying to get themselves over, and they can't do it. So they bring in Lou Ferrigno with a taser, what? Get out of here. Like, this is awful. Stop it. Just stop.
You know what? I'm going to say one thing. And I'm always for the heels, right? But you can be a jerky heel, you can be a jerk. And one thing that I think is going to come out of, not the bubbly bunch thing, but one thing that I think is going to come out of this is Sammy and Jericho teaming up. I think that's going to, again, reinvent Jericho. Because I think they can both be jerky. They can be like sex gods or whatever you want them to be. So I like that.
Anyway, yeah, for
it's
sure.
Good. It's good. That part's good creative, but I agree with you too because, it's too jokey. You can be you can be funny, like, but now you have Jericho coming out and they're singing Judas, and it's like he used to really push it to get booed. It seems like he's moving in that direction. Maybe it's a hint of a face turn, but, it seems to be, but I also agree with the tagging with Sammy Guevara. I think they're both both good, and you have the old veteran and the young guy, and give him the rub.
Yeah, and someone Cody said this, and I had said it a couple of weeks ago. I'm not saying that Cody stole it from me or anything, but he might have. The thing is that Jericho is AEW's Hogan. He is. He's the big fish that got brought in to make the company a name, and even when Hogan turned and he was Hollywood Hogan, he was still getting cheered because he was Hogan, right? Jericho's always going to get cheered because he's Jericho. And so people singing Judas and whatever, like, I get it for Jericho. But now you're trying to do that with these other stars that are in your group that you're trying to give the rub to, and they're supposed to be getting heat, and they're not, right? Like, Jake, he's not getting heat. The only reason he's getting heat is because nobody wants to watch his matches.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
He's improved.
he's gotten a little better since his world championship run in WWE that lasted a minute. It's just, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Hey, we are running out of time, I know, Joe, but if it's okay with you, I would like to bring out the bucket, if that's all right, my friend.
Yeah.
All right.
Go right ahead, my friend.
So, Vinicious, when we got into quarantine, I got my ghetto bucket out, and I made a thing called the bucket list. And in here, I've got 40 different topics about wrestling that I've written down on little slips of paper. And so I'm going to give you one, and we want to get your thoughts on it to close out the show here.
Perfect.
Let's pick something out here that'll be good. What do we got? All right. This one will be good for you, especially because we talked about some of your bump stuff earlier. What is the worst bump you've ever taken?
Oh, man. It was in practice. It was learning how to take to go over the top rope backwards. And I always want to do the cane thing, you hook your arm, you land on your feet. I always want to do that because one of my big things is, 330 pounds of power and pain. There's not a man in this building who can beat me. No, there's not a man in this building who would take me off my feet. So it's like, you know what? You get these little guys in South America, 5'3", 130 pounds, and they're coming at me. So I always wanted to do this thing, take a double drop kick. Don't even take the bump. Stand back like Kane used to do, wrap my arm, go over backwards and land, on your feet. So I'm doing that over and over and over again, and I can't do it. I'm too bulky. I'm too fat. I got a big stomach. And the worst bump I ever took was it was Pablo Marquez giving it to me. I anticipated the bump. I come up over the top rope before he can even lay his clothesline in. Flip over, and I go stomach first right into the apron. All 350 pounds of me at the time. I had a hematoma. I had internal bleeding. Like, my entire front side of my body was black and blue and purple. It's the worst bump I ever took. And then I wrestled all day, and I came home, and I'm like, man, this is like really freaky. The next morning, it had spread from like my abs down to like my crotch into my thighs. And my girl was like, you look like you're dead. That was the worst thing ever. It was painful, and it hurt for a month. And I still had to wrestle, but it hurt for a month. That's the worst bump.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Joe, you want to take us out, my friend?
Yeah, well, I want to thank everybody, but Vinicious, man, come back, come hang with us.
Anytime, man. I'm sitting in my house all day. I'm in the pool all day, man. You just let me know, and I'll be here.
All right, my friends, Joltin Joe's Wrestling Radio. We are out of time, which is a shame because we could probably do another 3 hours here. I want to thank our special guest, the mighty, the awesome, the vicious Vinicious. Thank you, bro.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was a blast.
Great fun. Really appreciate it so much.
Absolutely, man.
Tyler. The mouth of the South, he had the question of the day today. He was the man, for sure.
Where's the tiki bar?
And of course,
every week you work it in, my friend, and you're so good at it. Every week.
And you don't want to put me over? You don't want to tell me that I'm the man?
I do. It's Joe's Tiki Bar. It's his tiki.
Joe's Tiki.
Yeah, perfect.
No, man.
Tyler, every week you get better, my friend.
Yeah, but he's not putting me over anymore. Something's wrong. I used to give him a hard time about putting me over, and now he won't do it anymore. So
tell him to get the headset back on. He'll pop it in your ear.
Yeah.
Right? Then you'll wish I hadn't. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yes, radio. And finally, the man, the myth, the legend. That's what Tyler will always say about me. So we'll just say the Godfather himself, our engineer, and our protector, the mighty, terrible Ted. Hey, thanks everybody.
Thanks, guys.
So much. Hope you
Thank
enjoyed.
you all.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you soon.
Thank you.